We recently helped a company increase their revenues by 50% in just 90 days by using the 4 disciplines of execution. Today, I'll break it down so you can try leveraging this approach for your business. The 4 disciplines of execution, or 40X, is a framework developed by Covey. Today, we're simply covering it for educational purposes. By the end, you'll know how to track your performance, motivate your team, grow your business substantially over 90 days. Discipline 1, focus on the wildly important. The first discipline is about narrowing your focus. Most companies really struggle here. They have 10, 20, sometimes 30 different goals they're going after. And the truth is, when everything's important, nothing's important. 40X teaches us to zero in on a wildly important goal, also known as a WIG. This is the single most critical objective that will drive your business forward if you achieved it over the next 90 days. A wildly important goal is also known as a lag measure because it happens after you take actions to achieve it. That's why it lags. So let's say you run a SaaS company. You might have a dozen different ambitions and goals you're going after. Launch new features, expand into a new market, the list goes on. But if customer churn is affecting your revenue, your wildly important goal might be reduce churn rate from 12 to 8% by the end of the year. Notice something here. The wildly important goal is specific, measurable, and time-bound. Also, it forces you to say no to all the other distractions in your business. Here's the mistake to avoid in selecting your wildly important goal. It's natural to want to achieve multiple goals. You're an entrepreneur, you're a visionary. But the key here is to ask yourself, what will move you in the direction you want to be if you were to choose one thing? So just focus on one goal. Discipline 2, act on the lead measures. Once you've selected your wildly important goal, the next step is to focus on the actions that will actually move the needle. Naturally, most companies focus on lag measures. This much revenue by this date, this many staff members. But the thing is, those are the results. What lead measures force us to do is to focus in on what's actually going to make you achieve that goal. These are the specific, influenceable activities that can actually help you achieve your major goals. Sticking with our SaaS company example, if your wildly important goal is reducing churn, a lag measure is churn percentage. So that's your wildly important goal. But a lead measure could be number of customer success check-ins per week, response time to support tickets, or the percentage of customers checked in with their onboarding complete. Think about it this way. Your lead measures are things that your team can control on a weekly basis to actually move the needle. And when you consistently hit those lead measures, your wildly important goal is much more achievable. And when you consistently hit those lead measures, your lag measure improves consistently. Here's the key. Be super specific about the lead measures you choose. It can be really easy to select lead measures that aren't directly related to achieving your wildly important goal. Discipline 3, keep a compelling scoreboard. Now that you know your wildly important goal and your lead measures, the next step is to inspire everyone. There's nothing more inspiring than knowing if you're winning or losing as a team. This is why 40X emphasizes a clear, understandable scoreboard. Your scoreboard should answer 2 simple questions. Are we winning or losing? Are we ahead or are we behind? Going back to our SaaS company example, our scoreboard could track number of customer success calls per week, which would be your lead measure, things that your team can do to actually drive the wildly important goal. And then above that, it could track your customer churn rate. Your scoreboard should be somewhere where people can see it daily. But here's something to avoid. Make sure your dashboard isn't too complicated. Leaders are often focused on having a bunch of different metrics on there. That's not what you want. You want to have a clear, simplified scoreboard. And just remember, this is for your team. If you can't tell within about 5 seconds if you're winning or losing, then it's pretty much of no use. Keep your scoreboard incredibly simple. Try using colors to communicate to your team whether you're ahead or behind. You could have green if you're winning, yellow if you're on track, and red if you're starting to fall behind. Discipline 4, create a cadence of accountability. The final discipline, and the one that really makes or breaks it, is accountability. Without it, even the best goals and scoreboards, they all just fade into the background. So here's a key to this step. 40X emphasizes 1 weekly meeting per week. It should be short, rhythmic, and only focused on your execution. So here's how each session will look like. 1, each team member will report on how they did with last week's commitments. 2, the scoreboard will be updated together. And 3, everyone will make commitments for the next week. So for example, for lead measures, somebody might say, I'm going to make 10 customer success calls in the next week. The power here comes from repetition. In your first week, 2 weeks, you'll notice some people, they get far ahead, they're doing great, they're applying themselves. Other people, they're behind. However, as you get into weeks 3, 4, and 5, anybody who's not bought in will just fade away, and your team as a whole will buy in. Remember that you can't win as an organization unless you have have your whole team bought in. So the first few weeks will be a great testing ground to see if your team members are truly committed, which most of them will be. As a leader, it's super important that the only thing people are talking about in these meetings are your wildly important goals, what you're doing to achieve them through lead measures. There should be no other communication outside of that. Remember, consistency and narrowing in on what matters, that's what builds momentum. Okay, so just to recap, the 4 disciplines of execution are 1, focus on your wildly important goal, 2, act on your lead measures, 3, create a compelling scoreboard, and 4, create a cadence of accountability. When you apply these 4 disciplines, you focus in on one thing that's going to move the needle. Remember, if you're focused on 10, 20 different things, nothing will get done at the end of the day. And for the super ambitious people, once you achieve this wildly important goal, you can move on to the next one and focus your energy on that. We hope 40X works for your business, and thank you, Franklin and Covey, for developing this incredible process.